How's it going, everybody? My name is James Loud. Welcome to another episode of the James Loud Podcast. Today we've got Ali from Sunset Connect. How you doing today?
Good, James. How you doing? Good to be here.
Fantastic, man. It's great having you here. You know, we actually have a lot of mutual friends. They go back into the 90s.
Turns out we do, huh?
Pretty crazy.
Right?
Yeah, it's funny talking to people before the show, and then you realize that, shit, we had direct connection with a lot of people. You know, I think both being from the area and then the connection to the rave scene, you know, which kind of evolved into the cannabis scene to a degree.
I agree. I mean, a lot of those players, a lot of our old friends are now, big players in the cannabis.
I mean, even when the first time I saw your logo, it reminded me of a rave flyer, and then also Panhandle Records. My friend Elijah Mayhew from back in the day, he's like one of my best friends growing up. He had the Panhandle with the Muni style logo. And I love it's just, you see it, you recognize it, it's ingrained. It's like, if you're from the Bay, you know that logo.
Right. Elijah was definitely an inspiration, by the way. I always loved his brand. I loved the ESDJ Co brand. That was another old school brand that was around. But yeah, talking to you, one thing that I realize ever more is that the Bay OGs have been around for a minute, and most of us haven't done anything but cannabis, right? And, I think that's why we grow such good weed here.
Yeah, we've all been smoking forever. You know, like the one thing I can say is that the weed back in the Bay in the 90s was fucking amazing.
Absolutely.
It was really, really, really good stuff. It was incredible. People talk about how great the flower is now. And I mean, I think the stuff that we would get, even the stuff on average, the indoor stuff, was up to par with the best stuff today.
I agree. And it was different, right?
Yeah.
It was not as homogenous as today.
100%. It wasn't all gelato.
Right. And you meet a guy and he gives you something that you've never smelled or tasted before. Also, because I think the breeders weren't hanging out as much with each other, right? So there was less cross-pollination.
Absolutely. And people were popping seeds and getting genetics. You know, there's a handful of people popping seeds, and you could get clones from certain places, but it's like there was still stuff, we were getting European stuff. We were getting stuff from South America. There was like a mix of all kinds of different stuff. Durban was going around.
Yeah, a lot of land races. That was the beauty back then. A lot of land races and a few land race Cali wheat crosses.
For sure. Calio was, Calio.
The Crips. That was another one that I really liked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we had stuff that was going into the 70s that you just don't see anymore, like the Calio, for example.
Right.
Like, I think because it vegged so long, people weren't into, at a certain point.
Everything became an 8-weeker.
Yeah.
That's when we lost a lot of varietals, when everything became an 8-weeker.
Yeah, what got scary is when it went to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like
for a minute.
For a minute.
Yeah. Lamb's bread was one of those. Somebody tried to sold us a lamb's bread cut. Yeah. Like 6 weeks, the thing was done. You were scoping it and you're like, no way.
Crazy.
So we did produce that for a minute. I still have a cut of that, so I should
awesome.
Give you one of those.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure you'll do something great with it.
I love lamb's bread, Orange Hill. Those Jamaican varieties are super special. So,
I agree. And the other thing in the Bay is, back in the day, I realized like you had growers that really concentrated and specialized in one thing, like the GDP, or then you'd meet someone that was only growing hazes but had the haze market sort of on lockdown,
or the OG guy, and that's all he grew was OG, and he probably got a pound per light with the old OG.
But nobody fucked with him. Nobody went and grew the same thing. There was like this unwritten law of, this is my strain, what I'm known for is what you're known for, and we were all kind of complementing each other's packs, not trying to sell the whole box.
For sure.
One guy,
I think a lot of people got into breeding that way because they wanted something that was different than everybody else. Wanted to do something of their own. I mean, we love sour diesel, and so I wanted my own sour diesel because
I love sour
all my friends grew sour diesel. We love sour diesel. Yeah, totally.
One of my favorites.
The real sour is super special.
Yes, it is.
So yeah.
Or you have a room hermed out, and next thing you know, you got cookies. That could happen too.
Or a seed company. Some of these guys, it's like, they're like, oh yeah, we got 1 million seeds. What are we gonna do with them?
Start a seed company. Don't worry about checking them or testing them. Right? There's so many in a bag.
And I mean, early on, I learned my lesson selling stuff that was untested once, and then it was good. I learned it early on. And now it's like, even still, I will sell stuff that has intersex traits, but I want to make people aware. If you go to my website, you look, there's a couple of the genetics that we sell on there that have intersex traits, but I think they're so special. But I'm aware of it, and I'm letting you know. And if you're going to buy it, you're also aware of it. The contest winner, we'll see. We're announcing our contest winner on Thursday. Loud Loops, we sent out 100 packs of seeds, a little over 100. In December, we got 18 entries back. I've narrowed it down to 10. We're going to smoke 2 of them today. But I feel like some of the people got intersex traits, and maybe part of it is by putting them into flower too early. Also, it's in the genetics. But I feel like the genetics are so special. When you smoke this stuff, you'll give me your opinion, I'm sure, but man, sometimes it's worth it, and other times it's not.
I agree. I think as long as it's disclosed, right? So we've been growing the gummies for about 2 years now. It has a lot of intersex trades.
Yeah.
It's not very stable, but when it is, to your point, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, exotic genetics, I feel like Mike has made a whole company based on stuff that may or may not have intersex traits, but it's all phenomenal.
And I love exotic, by the way. We definitely are always down to pop and try. To your point, because when you do find something, it's usually just fire.
Well, yeah. And one thing I can say about exotic that I appreciate is something that he does is he'll take something and he'll work it into something better. So his red pop, I wasn't a huge fan of the red pop because it has this purple punch kind of like let down when I was growing it. And I was doing some crosses with it. And I'm like smelling it. I'm like, oh shit, this is like cherry cola. This is really, really good. This is a special one, right? And then at the end, I had one of my friends flower some out and I went to smoke it and I'm like, oh, it's purple punch.
Yeah, but then purple punch is a little disappointing.
But it was one cross away from being special. He crossed it with the runts and had that was what the red runts was. And then the red runts was amazing. Like really, really, really.
Is that what red runts was?
Red runts is that red pop times runts. And I think it's great.
I messed with the orange blow pop. Loved it.
Totally.
It smelled like Orange Crush. I grew it and I called all my girls. I'm like, dude, this shit smells like Orange Crush. Like actual oranges.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Sweet, sugary. exotics is like great.
His stuff is sugary. A lot of it checks the boxes.
Well, we have a different taste in the Bay, though. We have a very, very particular taste in the Bay.
We keep going back to Skittles, that's okay.
Yeah, I like Skittles. Have you ever tried a Polly Shore, the Polynesian? So I'll give you a cut of that. It's one of those super old school 90s strains we were talking about.
Wow.
Probably takes about 8 to 9 weeks at least. You can let her go
8,
for 9 and a half.
Yeah, totally.
But when you smoke it, just the smoke alone is so thick. You're like, wow, okay, this is a really special smoke. It has like notes of cinnamon, earthy, and some weird funk. I always call it the dog shit terpene because I can't really put a better name to it.
Yeah, we always had cat piss back in the day to smoke. I mean, that stuff was cat piss in the 90s was amazing.
That was another one that only few people grew, and there was a cat piss guy, right? So
there was a cat piss guy. You got your cat piss from him and only him. It's like mine was a guy named Gus and my buddy Steve, but they all got it from the same exact guy. And it was $60 an eighth straight up. We'd buy ounces for $480.
The good old times.
Good old times, yeah. And it looked like shit in the bag. That's the other thing. The cat piss that we got was not chunky fat buds. It was like shredded calyx sometimes.
But you opened the bag and you're like, God damn, what just happened?
You didn't open the bag. You knew that it was, it was like it would be in your pocket or it would be in a backpack or it'd be in 10 bags.
Yeah, the ammonia on that was strong.
So strong.
Strong.
And it wasn't like. So my experience with cat piss, it wasn't gassy. Like a lot of people try to say gassy. It was thiols, but it was skunk thiols, real, like when you talk about roadkill skunk, that's the closest to roadkill skunk that there is.
Yeah, I always thought it had more of a pungent sort of blue cheese kind of.
It was so pungent that it would burn your nostrils.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people didn't even like the smell of it. They were like,
no, they didn't. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I have friends like, oh, this is gross. And then they would immediately pack a bowl.
Yeah. Well, I remember when the European genetics really started coming into the Bay in the 90s. We started getting through the third floor through some of what was the one in Oakland? It was the Blue something.
The Blue Sky Cafe.
The Blue Sky Cafe. Yes. And the clones in the back, right? You get the clones
Blue
in the back.
Sky Cafe. Great clones. I think that's where we got the Blue Dream clone from. The guy was like, there's this, our buddy's dad went to buy clones. And the guy's like, give me something that not everybody grows. And he's like, I got this really sad looking plant here. And it was Blue Dream. Yeah. And our buddy's dad took it to his house. A little finicky and veg, but then it just fucking got Blue Dream. And yeah, that's how we were some of the people that hoard out Blue Dream. Sadly.
As far as Blue Dream is the apical of structure, yield, all those things. Blue Dream is... It checks the boxes. Maybe it doesn't check the boxes on the terpene profile or the effect.
But when it came out, it did. Everybody wanted Blue Dream. It was going for $3,700 in LA.
I think people still like it. They just don't want to admit they like it.
Sure.
So, but yeah, and it's a milder effect. So it's definitely a lighter sativa. I feel like that was the one, if we're going on a hike or if we're going bowling or whatever we were doing back in the day, that would be like, okay, let's smoke some Blue Dream.
That was my road trip weed. If I have to drive for 8 hours, I don't want to get too tired. You smoke some Blue Dream.
You're good to go.
You're smiling the whole time.
Yeah, we had that and green crack. And the green crack was they'd grow because the flowering time was very similar on those. So you could grow them together in the same room because I liked harvesting all my stuff. I didn't want to have to harvest, then wait 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks.
Have half an empty room.
Oh yeah. Seriously, wasting your electricity. So I grew them together. And the green crack was good for like the first couple of weeks because you get super ripped. But then your tolerance would go so high it wouldn't even get you high.
Yeah.
You'd smoke big old bats of it. And then the next thing you know, fuck, it's not getting you high anymore.
I feel that way about a lot of the current strains.
Yeah.
And I think also the reason people mix up strains so much is because they all have a ceiling.
Right.
You get pretty immune.
When most people don't notice it because they switch so much.
Right.
But yeah, I think most of the genetics do have ceilings.
But when you test for yourself to judge if you like the flower, my usual rule is I'll only smoke an ounce of this, no other weed for the next 2 days. And if I like it, then I really like it. If I can smoke an ounce in 2 days and not want to smoke anything else, then that's a good strain to me.
Yeah, it's hard to find those kind of genetics, especially even just the genetic side, but then also the cultivation and the guys growing. I mean, there's a lot of flower out there. There's not a lot of amazing flower out there.
It's easy to grow weed. It's hard to grow good weed, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of what it is. Well, I think the also problem is the automation, the fertigation, everything. Yeah. Everybody is buying the same shit from the same people now. Yeah. So you really, it kind of loses that personal touch.
Right.
As well as just back in the day, if we had houses that were closer to the beach in the Sunset, that would guaranteed be done 3-4 days earlier and have a completely different expression than the ones that were up on the hill. Same mom, same cuts.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's kind of one thing I miss is just it's sort of like wine. When you in Napa, when you have multiple wineries growing the same grapes or even similar clones, but just their location just that really terroir makes the difference, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, especially with outdoor weed. I mean, there was a point where outdoor was more expensive than indoor. I remember those days. I remember the sour diesel days but it was like you get sour diesel from specific people and it would come out, even though it was the same cut, it would come out 2 different ways from 2 different people.
Right. And then buyers like, that's not the same.
Yeah, it's not even the same.
Yeah, yeah. We had a lot of that. Because
I think that's when the rename game started was, all the way back then. But yeah, so let's dive into some of these.
He's a proper doinks, no pun intended.
So these ones I have identified as soil grown. I believe they're soil grown based on the effect, the cure. And the guys who entered this contest, narrowing it down to the top 10, these guys all grew amazing flower. Some you could tell were like more of the cocoa grown. I don't think we got any rock wool, although we'll find out when I start asking more questions.
Do the contestants disclose it?
No, but I'll ask. It's not a fair competition where you give everybody the same clone. Someone's going to win the lottery and get better genetics.
Sure.
That person may or may not be the best cultivator. We'll see. This is kind of a unique test.
So what is this that we're smoking right here?
So this is Loud Loops. So it's Zereos times ZBX. And Zereos is Sherbet times cereal milk. And then ZBX is the Skittles back cross with the Gelato 41.
Okay.
So there's a good amount of diversity.
I get some Z here.
Yeah. There's for sure. There's a little candy chirp, but I think a lot. So I've been smoking these for a week and a half now. And what I'm finding is like a lot of the cereal milk expression is dominant. And then you're finding a little Skittles here, sherbety, and cereal milk and sherbet kind of have similar like that musky profile a little bit. That
I feel like cereal milk is a little heavier and sherbet's a little brighter.
Yeah,
like has a little bit more citrus or
and so you're getting a lot of that. And then the unicorns are more of the Z ones, and I feel like it's associated with the structure too. Like the ones that don't have quite as much structure, like as nice of a structure, those ones are going to have more Skittles terps.
Sure.
So it just goes hand in hand.
Sherb has a lot of structure. I remember
Sherb does have a lot of structure.
I remember I was in the Sunset and one of my buddies said, Mario might have had a landlord inspection or something, but this guy was holding some moms for him.
Yeah.
And I went over there and I looked at it and I'd never seen a Sherbet cup before. It was like 2004, 5.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, 2012. Sorry.
2012. Yeah, that sounds more like it.
12.
Yeah.
And I go into this guy's house and it's gray, it's purple, it's orange. It's just got this bud structure that's bubbly, but still a little foxtaily. I mean, it was literally what we consider designer weed today, right? And I looked, I'm like, dude, what the fuck is this? Yeah. It's just called Sunset Sherbet. Remember, it was called Sunset Sherbet in the very beginning, and then it turned into Sherbinsky and into Sherbet. Dude. And I think Mario is phenomenal, by the way. He's always been super kind to me. And
he's a character for sure. Yeah, I used to get packs off him back in the day, and I ended up getting this guy Travis some of the packs, and a whole seed company. There was one seed, and that one seed built his seed company over in Europe. I mean, the beginning of it.
That's all it takes.
You know, that's all it takes was that one to get him on the map. I mean, he did a lot of stuff beyond that, but that was like that one seed was a game changer, you know?
I love that though. Those are the best stories. Some bag seed that turns you into a name in the cannabis industry. Good for you.
Seriously. Especially when the genetics weren't super prevalent over there.
I remember when we were in college and I would go home to visit, you know, I grew up 2 hours outside of Amsterdam. I would drive to Amsterdam and get as much like Euro weed as I could and literally fly it back with me in like the 90s through SFO, because back then there was more flavors in Holland than we had here.
Right.
It was like the exact opposite of today, whereas now it's completely flipped. We have thousands of flavors and they're still growing Amnesia Haze. So
absolutely. You know, they've renamed Amnesia Haze 10 different things too.
A million times probably by now. We also sold a lot of blackjack back in the legacy.
Yeah,
days.
I like
that
blackjack.
was another one of our kind of signature.
I haven't seen that since the 90s.
Yeah,
for sure.
But on Ease in 2017, I think our blackjack was the #1 selling flower.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
We sold a lot.
Blackjack, Black Domina. Remember Black Domina?
Our blackjack was Black Domina and Jack. And just the expression was so.
Was it? 50, it was dark 50. Too.
Yeah, it was.
It had some color.
It was like a grayish purple. It wasn't a dark purple. It had a really nice grayish purple hue, and it was really uppity. Most people call it their workout weed in the city.
Nice. Yeah. It's I think Red Congolese has kind of made a comeback over the last like 4 years on and off. There's a couple of people growing it, and it had hop latent viroid. That was another. Hop latent viroid's fucked up a lot of genetics.
So many in California right now. I mean, we went back to popping hella seeds right now.
Yeah. But even with seeds, it's transmissible.
We have old seeds.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
We have nice heirloom seeds.
Totally. Those are the best.
that we've been hoarding and collecting. Yeah. Should probably give you some of those better.
I got some for you guys as well. Yeah. I mean, I love the genetics and store. As long as you store them, they're good for a long time. Yes. If you store them correctly, right? If you just put them in your drawer, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. If you live in anywhere past Oakland, you're probably going to be in trouble. You live in Sacramento, you're fucked. It gets too hot unless you have air conditioning. So, and even then, with that fluctuation in temperature, your seeds go better.
What's the humidity you recommend for storing seeds?
So humidity low. I put desiccants in mine. So the drier you store them, the better. We use lab fridges that has 0 humidity in there, but like they're in glass jars. And I've seen charts, and it's like the longer you plan on storing them, the lower you want that humidity.
Right. That makes sense. Sure. But your facility is unreal, dude. This is really impressive.
Yeah.
Phenomenal
awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah. We put some work into this, and I think this is just accumulation of my partner and I and all the stuff we've learned along the way to actually put it into a facility, of this scale, doing what we're doing, kind of trying to change the game, not just doing what everybody else is doing. It's like research and development. We're more of a biotech company than we are a nursery or a breeding facility or anything else.
Yeah, it's definitely the impression that you get when you walk in here.
Right. But we're not trying to be anything but ourselves. Right. We're just trying to do the best we can and trying to push the bar the best way we know how. So it's a lot of fun though. It's, and then coming into this place every day is not the worst way to go.
Well, that's what I say every day when I walk into my manufacturing spot. I'm like, if I told my 16-year-old self that I have a hash factory one day, I'm growing my own weed and it's all legal, it's talking, no way. This is a dream come true to an extent, but it's also a nightmare with the way that some things in our industry are, right? Which is was the main reason that I decided to really be active and try to be the chairman of the San Francisco Oversight Committee and of the State Advisory Board. Because I thought people like you and me that have actually seen this shit for 25 fucking years, we're not getting a seat at the table. We weren't. There's a bunch of lobbyists and outdoor cultivation groups, which I don't think they shouldn't have a seat at the table, but they weren't going after the old guys selling, hundreds of pounds over, in the 90s already. So I do think California is really unique, and then letting somebody like me sit at that table and listening to us. But I also realize right now in the industry, the way it's going, a lot of corporates going out of business with the shit that's happening with herbal.
Right.
You see the MedMan debt, the Harborside debt. It's like,
oh yeah,
maybe you should have listened to us more. We had an existing industry. We had an existing craft beer industry that was crushing it. You could have had 1,000 Anchor Steams and you went for 5 Budweisers, and now you're surprised that this shit's happening.
Yeah, you're surprised at the results. And it's like, you know, I think I've talked a little bit about Anchor Steam with some of the guests, but they kind of, we're here in part because of Anchor Steam. San Francisco. Fred Maytag, right? Yes. So Fred Maytag, who wanted to start his own microbrewery in the 70s. So John from Cutting Edge, Uncle John was telling me the story. In the 70s, he wanted to, then they said, no, you need to join one of the big four. And he was like, no, that's not happening. I'm not going to do it. So he got dirt on all the politicians. He had PIs following the politicians around, and it was like one of the fastest bills ever changed.
Oh, he's the man.
He's the man. And so it's that kind of change that got us to where we are today, I feel like. And it's great being part of the whole thing in San Francisco.
It's funny you say Anchor Steam. When people come to our facility, I always go, we kind of consider ourselves the Anchor Steam of cannabis. We can do craft on a pretty industrial scale.
Totally.
But that's just because we love what we do. And it's like over all these years, you figure it out, right? I mean, like I see what you do here. It looks more impressive than most biotech companies. And people don't realize that, if you want clean, good genetics, they have to come out of a place like this.
They have to.
Yeah.
There's no exception. Yeah. And I think we're going into the direction that everybody's going to have to go into. It's not like we're doing something that's going to be, you know, once federal legalization goes in and there's changes and we have the FDA, you know, and these organizations coming in, they're going to change it and make it really hard for a lot of people. So we're gearing up for that.
That's what I said. When we built our facility, I got to build it on a level that it'll pass a pharmaceutical grade. Not because I want to. People think it's like ego and you're doing it for like aesthetics. It's like, no, dude, this was built so there's no microbiological hazards here. So there's and that's why you do it. But I think, it's impressive what you've built, and
thank you.
Cool to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about your company and how you guys got your start.
We started growing weed in college. My partners and I met first day of freshman year at USF, bunch of 18-year-olds that couldn't pay for weed. So we started growing. They started growing. I was moving a lot of it. And then I think that's kind of how we know a few of our common friends in the rave scene. Started moving packs. When I was about 20, then my crew got popped by the feds. Most of us got popped. Nobody said anything. Everybody walked. I was on probation for a few years. My buddies were still growing because thankfully they didn't get popped. Probation for a few years. Finished probation. Super traumatized. Didn't want anything to do with weed.
Right.
Moved back to Germany for like 5-6 years, and that's when medical really took off here. And I mean, I was back 3 times a year hanging out with my boys. So it wasn't like I wasn't coming home. But so I was like 2010, my buddies came to Germany, said, dude, pack up your shit. Like, you're not going to get busted again. Like, this shit is legal now.
Right.
We supply dispensaries, come back and let's do this again. Let's go back to our old heights. So
awesome.
Sort of what we did. And then when 2016 came around, we saw the writing on the wall. Decided to really lobby for a seat at the table to be heard because we didn't have a warehouse. Like, we were growing in 30 houses in the Sunset. We didn't have a warehouse. Right? We weren't zoned. Yeah. And at that point, to your point, you already had a company like Gold Seal that was growing Red Congo and that had a warehouse. There was Betty Project, etched Cultivators. You had a couple of outfits that were definitely in the Bayview, could probably transition, but we know that wasn't us because we were growing in houses and we were producing our edibles and hash and stuff in the back of the Plant Cafe kitchen in the commissary.
Amazing.
Which is actually where SF, Office of Cannabis's first tour was. We're like, go to the front, ask the cashier. We'll walk you into the back to the commissary where we're making hash.
Hilarious.
It was totally Breaking Bad. It was pretty funny. So then we had to transition. And I transitioned manufacturing first. Was the first manufacturer to open in the city, pulled 3 out of the first 10 permits, pulled the first building permit in San Francisco.
Nice.
And not with like a big crew of lawyers and shit, dude. Just my buddy, part of my company is one of the better attorneys in the space. Our growers are really smart, scientific guys. We looked at building codes, we figured it out, hired an architect and, figured it out. And now Sunset Connect is the #1 selling single gram pre-roll in the state. We beat Jeter's out of that spot, which I'm really proud of for a little SF dude. And we kind of have to restructure now because, Herbal went broke and they're really good partner of ours, and we now have to find a new distributor. But that's how this game goes. You gotta be flexible, gotta be nimble.
Yeah, it's all about being able to pivot.
Yeah,
and having
every day, sometimes
having a plan B. Like, yeah, totally. I mean, if there's one thing I learned from my partner, it's always have a plan B.
Yeah.
Like, what's our plan B? Like, if this doesn't work, we're thinking ahead.
Yeah, always have to have plan B and then a contingency if that doesn't come through. And that can't just be another plan C that's, unrealistic. That's when you go, okay, if that happens, we contract, we expand again, or we kill a few SKUs. So I did that. That was actually one of the things that made us most successful, was setting aside what I know my small microcosm wanted and saying, okay, what's the data here? And the data was the single gram joint. So, we started with one SKU, used to sell like 10,000 a month, and now we're at 7 of the same kind and sell like 100,000 of them a month, right? Yeah. So, but we cut out flowers for the time being, topicals, edibles. We cut out a lot of, rationalize our SKUs.
Nice. So doubling down on what you're good at, getting rid of the stuff that is questionable.
Focus, right?
Focus. Yeah. It's all about focus.
Yeah, that's it.
So what do we got here?
Well, that's one of the flavors. So we have 2 sativas, 2 indicas, and 2 hybrids at any given point. This is your morning commute. So it's based on the Muni ticket, right? That's sort of our whole thing. So this is your morning commute. And this is a Sunset Popsicle, which is actually blow pop sugar trim and Sunset Sherbet. And this is a trim joint that goes out the door at a dispensary for $5. Because we felt like, dude,
that's amazing.
They offer nothing to somebody on a budget that still needs to smoke a lot, and like
it still tastes good. Probably, I'm assuming. I just dry hit it and it tastes good.
And they're fresh. I mean, it is a sugar trim joint. Like we don't make any, we don't hide that fact. But test at 25%. It's fresh. I don't think you'll ever get one that's older than like 2 or 3 weeks in a store.
That's part of the game too. That's one of the most important parts that I think a lot of people are dropping the ball on, is realizing that this is a product that needs to be fresh.
Yeah, I don't want old dry shit.
No, I don't want 3-month-old weed, like necessarily if it's been sitting on the shelf. Maybe if you harvested it and you stored it correctly and then you put it out and I get it a week after. It's like there's ways you can do stuff now. Totally. For sure. But I think a lot of people are dropping the ball on not only how they dry and cure it, but how long it sits on the shelf.
Processing.
Yeah,
the processing is post-processing. We're really particular. Like from batch sizing, you have a lot of influence on your product. If you do it in small batches, you can make 10 small batches, but we grind in like 100-gram batches. Most big pre-roll makers grind in 5 pounds and it's dust.
So I got a good solution for all this. This is the best solution, actually. I'm taking it from Lagunitas because that's what they did. When they started shipping beer across the country, they had it refrigerated in refrigerated trucks going. They were the first ones that did that. All the big beer companies doing that, right? And they got they got Heineken from over in Amsterdam to start shipping their beer in the water to the United States. So it's not skunky like it used to be.
Oh, really? Is that
Heineken bought Lagunitas? For $1 billion, for half a billion and then a full billion. And but what we could do with the flower is we could all have it stored at 60 degrees, transfer it at 60 degrees, and then the dispensary has it at 60 degrees. So when you get it, you're getting
humidity. That would also
at 60.
be nice.
Well, for sure, 60% humidity, nice. 60 degrees coming in. So you're never getting it out of that environment. You're going to get a better product for a lot longer. People are going to be a lot more satisfied.
Yeah, that's kind of what I see. The consumer thinks that there's no consistency because and I see it in the numbers. One dispensary moves, 130 of these a day, and another one does 70. So you can adjust that by case sizes. So we have 125 and a 250 case. Fast movers get the big case. Medium movers get the the small case because they move through it fresh. But you go to dispensaries and they have 4 or 5 month old flower jars. I mean, I don't want that.
I don't want that either. Or a year old. I've seen year old products.
Well, now a year is the cutoff. You have to return it to the vendor.
That's pushing it. 11 months, 10 months, 9 months.
I mean, with hash, sure. I like aged hash. Totally. I personally aged hash for years.
Yeah.
And then I bust it open. But I agree. I think with flower pre-rolls, edibles shouldn't be around for a year probably.
Probably not. Yeah. I think, definitely edibles have those shelf lives for them based on food, right?
On food. But they also degrade though.
I mean, I like my bread fresh too. I'm not going to eat stale bread or anything like that. But
that shit gave me such cotton mouth.
That's
holy shit! Like
pretty good though, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Like, flavor-wise,
good flavor.
This one on the refire, same thing. It's like
I do have to do a refire. I think it could cure a little longer still. This one, but in terms of effect, high, great. Really pleasant. Got me proper ripped, and I didn't even finish it yet. Yeah, you can taste it on the relight. Yeah,
nice.
That's nice.
It's a great sign.
Yeah, that is.
Well, and a lot of these are soil grown, living soil grown. These entries, and it's I like the Skittly though. Like the ones that are what's that added layer of flavor that makes it special?
It's like a Skittles is such a good flavor enhancer. It's kind of like what Forbidden Fruit was, but
dude,
it's just Forbidden Fruit and Purple Punch just fucked everything up for some reason.
Oh, dude, Purple Punch. The thing is with Purple Punch looks amazing on the plant. It's like, I think most of the phenos of wedding cake are like this too. They look amazing on the plant. You grow them, they yield really well. They look like super Instagram beautiful. And then you go to smoke them and it's like, wait a second.
Such a letdown.
Wait a second. Where's the terps? Yeah. And, so Oreos is like that. Apple fritter, in my opinion. And the thing with apple fritter is I like the effect of apple fritter, but I don't like the fact that it smells like an apple fritter and then you go to smoke it and you don't get those terps. It doesn't taste
anything of it.
No, and I've said it before, but all these things that aren't that great, like Oreos and Purple Punch, I think they're all one good cross. Yeah, like the example of the Red Pop, which is actually, it was Purple Punch or whatever he used, but Purple Punchy, his strawberry must have Purple Punch in there on some line. Going from there to the Red Pop, it's like, it just takes work and effort.
But all three ones that you named are impossible to sell. They're all three of them. Nobody wants to buy them. It's unreal. And then even buyers that are looking for completely different things, they'll tell you they don't want Oreos. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No matter who they are.
We have, it's not Oreos, it's Zoreos. Yeah. That's like the rename game.
Well, the rename game got escalated with now the shape bags. I feel like the rename game is now the shape bag and rename game. The bigger and the more die cut your shape bag is. I just can't get into that. That's kind of also why we cater. I always say we cater to like the heavy smoker that has to watch their pocket and just wants a decent smoke still. Yeah. And that's like the people that I make stuff for because I was always kind of selling to blue collar dudes in the city. So that's my people. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. The city is interesting how diverse it is. So even the dispensaries back in the day were super diverse. From Ocean Street all the way to the one like Spark and Green Door,
Kitama, in between there, Tariq with his Basa,
all these completely different vibes.
Totally, Shambhala, now Mission Cannabis. Remember that one? That song was awesome.
Yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah. Well, this is just like we said, it's pretty amazing to have been part of the old iteration and of the new one. And I always say this is a global experiment. Yeah. And California is the only place in this global experiment that actually matters in terms of scale.
Yeah.
And we, they are looking at us. Like everybody's watching.
For sure. Yeah. So there's only two people in life that you need to impress. It's your 18-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. And I think we'd be doing okay.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We'll see
when you're
still
80.
Quite a path to go.
Yeah. The 18-year-old self for sure.
Yeah. He's pretty happy right now. I've done all right by him.
Right. Yeah, so where can people find you if they're looking?
I think we're in almost every dispensary in San Francisco, so we're pretty easy to find around there. You can find us at PCF in Sacramento. You can find us at all of the One plants around the Bay. And just follow us on Instagram at Sunset Connect, and we can always send you the right way.
Excellent, man. Well, it was really good having you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
All right.
You have to come back and do it again. We're doing blind tastings next time.
I should bring our breeder, San Francisco. He's my partner.
That'd be fantastic.
I tried to bring him here today. He said he was slammed, but he would love to come by. We're all big fans of yours.
Yeah, and we're constantly going through different phenos. So if you guys want to go check some stuff out.
Love to.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.
That's funny.
You guys are missing all the good content.
I know.
No, we don't want to talk about this shit on camera.
Hell no. No.
Fucking Bill.
Never seen this guy before.
Yeah.